Have you ever caught yourself talking out loud when you're alone and immediately wondered, why did I just say that? Not because it was strange, but because it felt automatic, almost necessary, like your mind needed to hear itself just to keep moving. If you do this, psychology says there is something important about how your mind works that most people completely misunderstand, and it is not what you've been told. You're not weird, you're not unstable, and you're definitely not doing it by accident. In fact, talking to yourself when no one is around is often a sign of a mind that processes life differently, more actively, more deliberately, and more deeply than average. Think about how it happens. You don't just think quietly all the time. You explain things to yourself. You rehearse conversations. You narrate what you're doing. Sometimes you encourage yourself. Sometimes you correct yourself. Sometimes you question yourself. And sometimes the thoughts inside your head feel so crowded that keeping them silent feels impossible. At some point, you may have wondered if this was normal, or if it meant something was wrong. Psychology's answer is simple, but rarely said clearly. It's not only normal, it's meaningful. Most people experience thoughts as vague impressions, feelings without words, impulses without structure. Their inner world moves quickly, but loosely. Yours doesn't. Your mind wants clarity. It wants thoughts to have shape, order, and direction. And when silence isn't enough to hold that complexity, your voice becomes the tool. This is the first thing people get wrong about talking to yourself. You're not doing it because you're confused. You're doing it because you're organizing. Have you noticed how your thoughts feel clearer after you say them out loud, even when no one is listening? How a problem suddenly makes sense once you explain it, even with no audience. That's because your brain isn't just thinking abstractly. It's translating raw mental noise into structure. When you speak, your mind slows chaos into order. You turn pressure into information. You don't talk to yourself because you lack control. You talk to yourself because your mind refuses to stay disorganized. This is also why silence can feel uncomfortable for you, not because you're anxious, but because your brain is too active to sit in empty space the way others can. Your mind is always sorting, adjusting, refining. And be honest with yourself for a moment. Have you ever felt relief after saying something out loud, even when no one responded? That wasn't random. That was your cognitive system doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here's where it gets deeper. People who talk to themselves often have a highly developed internal dialogue. Your thoughts don't just appear. They argue, question, and test each other. When you speak to yourself, you're not imagining conversations. You're externalizing reasoning. You'd rather hear an idea clearly than let it drift vaguely in your head. Speaking gives your thoughts edges. It creates distance, and that distance creates insight. While many people let thoughts pass without challenge, you interrogate yours. You ask if something actually makes sense, if it's true or just emotional noise. That habit alone puts you ahead of the curve, and it explains something else you might recognize. You narrate simple tasks. You explain steps out loud. You talk yourself through actions. Not because you're struggling, but because your brain doesn't like ambiguity. It prefers precision. You use language the way a builder uses measurements to make sure everything aligns. But structure isn't the only reason this habit exists. Have you noticed how talking to yourself becomes automatic when you're trying to focus? When you're searching for something, solving a problem, or staying on track. You repeat the name of what you're looking for. You narrate your steps. You mutter instructions under your breath. To someone watching, it might look odd. Psychologically, it's one of the most efficient focus tools the human brain has. When you speak out loud, you're not just expressing thought, you're directing attention. Your voice tells your brain what matters right now. Irrelevant details fade. Relevant ones sharpen. Most people rely on passive attention. They look and hope something stands out. You don't wait. You guide your focus. You're not talking to yourself. because you're distracted. You're talking to yourself because you're optimizing. And this carries into emotion too. You might say things like, "It's okay, calm down," or "Why did that bother me so much?" That's not accidental. When you address yourself directly, you create distance from emotion. That distance gives you control. Instead of drowning in feelings, you step back and talk yourself through them. You coach yourself. You slow your nervous system with language. That's emotional intelligence. Yes, sometimes your inner voice is critical. Sometimes it's harsh. But even then, it's part of a system trying to guide, correct, and protect you. Talking to yourself also changes how your brain stores information. When you say something out loud, your brain treats it as important. It creates a stronger memory trace. That's why you rehearse plans, repeat instructions, summarize experiences to yourself. You don't let meaning drift away. You secure it. And when you step back and look at the full picture, one thing becomes clear. Talking to yourself isn't a random habit. It's a system. A system your mind built to handle complexity. Some people don't need to talk to themselves because their thoughts are simple and reactive. Yours aren't. Your mind runs simulations, revisits ideas, questions assumptions. And when all of that stays trapped inside, it creates pressure. Your voice becomes the release. Silence doesn't equal intelligence. Intelligence expresses itself differently. Some minds think quietly. Others think out loud. You belong to the kind that understands itself best by hearing its own thoughts. That's why clarity often comes after speaking, not before. Talking doesn't follow understanding. It creates it. So the next time you catch yourself speaking out loud, don't stop in embarrassment. Remember what it actually means. It means your mind is active. It means you're engaged. It means you're meeting reality head on instead of avoiding it. You were never meant to keep everything trapped inside. When you talk to yourself, you're not escaping life. You're listening closely enough to understand it.